Happy Monday. Donnie Baker here with you, LPR Sound Foundation. I'm also at ES Audio Recording Studios today, and I want to share with you our two analog consoles. Now, both our consoles in our Studio B and our Studio A are fully analog. They're not controllers. They're strictly analog consoles. And I'm going to share with you what it's like to bring signal in, where it goes next. It's signal flow. I'm going to share with you signal flow on both our consoles. If you're ready to go look at these consoles, let's go.
This is an Allen Heath GS3000 from 1995. The GS3000 recording console. And we're going to talk a little bit about this today. I'm going to show you the channel strips because this is the important part. Once you understand one channel strip, now you understand them all. There's 32 channel strips on this console, and they're all exactly the same. So once you understand one, then you'll understand all of them. Each one has phantom power, the plus 48, and it has a gain knob. You can switch between line and mic, and it also has a phase invert switch. Next, we come down to the channel EQ. Each channel strip has two faders. One is for monitor and one is for channel. Now the channel is the one that goes to the recording. The monitor is the one that comes back from the recording so that we can hear what's going on. So here we can split between the channel or the monitor, the high frequency and the low frequency. They're both a shelf. Then next we have a parametric. We have a high mid frequency and a low mid frequency, and each one of those has access to a quality factor or the Q. You can select the frequency and then you can boost or cut. Looks like plus 17 or minus 17 dB. Next we have, there's also a low cut switch or a high pass filter at 100 Hertz. Next we have the auxiliary sends. Auxiliaries 1 and 2 are both pre or post fader, depending on how you select them in the master. And then 3 and 5 and 4 and 6 are the same, and they are both post fader. Now, I get asked a lot what this XFX button is. Basically, it's another auxiliary send which can be regulated by the channel fader. So if you need one more auxiliary send, you can create that with the XFX button and use this fader to send to the auxiliary. It's sometimes cool to use these faders as a headphone mix. If you need one more headphone mix, you can do that by using these faders. These are the channel faders. They have a pan control. You can send it to the B mix. Now this just means there's another mix that can go on at the same time by using these faders. These have a mute button and a pre-fader listen. Also a peak, just a peak light. So if you hit it too hard, the light will come on. Next we have the monitor fader, which is what we actually listen to while we're recording. So the channel fader sends to the recording. The monitor fader comes back from the recording so that we can hear what's going on. Now these can be sent directly to the left and right, to the master fader, or they can be sent through subgroups. Actually, the channel and the monitor can both be sent through subgroups by selecting the channel monitor switch there, and then the subgroup, assign it to a subgroup. This console has 8 subgroups, or 8 buses, if you will. So we can send the bus to the recording device, and we can mix everything down, send it to the recording device, and then listen back on these monitor faders. So here are the subgroups, or the buses. There's 8 buses on this console. Next to that is the left and right, which is the master fader. This console does have a transport built in, which we actually run. It actually connects to our DAW via MIDI. So there you can assign the subgroups, whether they go out left and right, or whether they're stereo or they're mono. So you could actually get 8 mono buses out or 4 stereo buses. So then we have, there are meters for each bus. Then up above that, we have the auxiliaries, the auxiliary masters, if you will. And this is unique to this console, and this is what makes this console actually quite cool, is we have these 2 tubes. I don't know if you can see right inside there. There's 2 tubes inside there, and we can actually take any signal and run it into a tube and then be able to drive it, be able to just add extra signal through the tube, so you can distort it and it sounds pretty good. This actually does have a guitar mode on it, So you could actually send a guitar signal into a tube and then out of the tube back into a channel and record it. And then you can drive it. It just sounds pretty cool. Not that, you know, we usually use a guitar amp for that kind of thing with pedals and things like that. But if you just had the console and just wanted to plug in direct and try it, it's there for you. Then these are the studio outputs, Studio 1, Studio 2. We use Studio 1 to feed the headphones, and we can tell it whether it's getting the auxiliary 1 or the control room feed or the B-Mix feed or the left and right feed. And then we can also, there's a talkback button there. We can actually press that button and talk to the headphones. The other one is the studio loudspeakers, the SLS. Say the artist is in the room and he doesn't have his headphones on, we can talk to him through the speakers. Okay, there's the talk level. That's actually the microphone for the talk. You can actually talk to the groups, which are these. These are also groups. So you can send a talk signal to the groups if you need to. And then we have the stereo returns, which are awesome for bringing back the reverbs or delays or whatever stereo return you need to send in there. And stereo return 1 and 2 have access to a full EQ and all the auxiliaries. Stereo return 3 and 4 only have access to auxiliary 1 and 2 and then a pan control. And then you can send it to the B-Mix or the left and the right. The thing with this console is that it's got 32 channels. Each channel has 2 faders. So essentially you can get 64 on the mix on the console. And then you can actually send 8 more there. And then you've got 8 more with the stereo returns. So that's a lot of outputs for the mix. In this room, we only have 48 outputs from our DAW that we can put onto the console, but that's usually a lot if we're going to be mixing on the console. What we normally do in here is it's a hybrid mix. We take the output of our DAW and run it onto the monitor faders just so we can monitor it. And we're going to talk about that a little bit this month, but there'll be one post dedicated simply to hybrid mixing in this room, which is the way that mixes get done in this room quite often. So hopefully some of this is explained a little bit about the console and how the routing works on the console. We're going to get a little bit deeper into the patch bays in an upcoming episode this month. So the patch bays and how they're connected to this console. So let me know in the comments if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns about our Allen Heath GS3000 recording console. So this is our Studio A here at ES Audio Recording Studios in Los Angeles, California. This is an Audient ASP 4816. And what that means is that we have 16 buses that we can record through and 48 channels on the mix. Now this console is very similar. This console is very similar to the one in Studio B in that it is a split console. We have the inputs are here, which has the phantom power, the plus 48. It's got a low cut or high pass filter, and then it's also got the phase shift. The input is the blue knob there. The red knob on the top is coming back from the DAW, so that's a line level input that we can adjust. Each one's got a gain knob on the DAW return if we need that. Okay, and then we have to, if we want to put an insert on the DAW return or an insert on the mic line input, we can do that. We have to tell it that we're going to do that by pressing that insert button. Coming down next, we have the routing, which this console routes very similar to an SSL, how an SSL console routes. So we can tell it to go to the buses, which are here. We can route each input into a single bus. Okay, then we can shift it. We can use the pan. There's 2 different faders on this console, which we're going to get to in a sec. There's the short fader, and then what they call the short fader. Then there is the long fader, which are these here. The white ones are the longer faders. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to tell it whether we're sending the long fader or the short fader to the buses, which go and get recorded. Next up, we have the auxiliary faders, or the auxiliary outs, which there are 6 full complete instead of splitting like Studio B, 1 through 6. Then we have a foldback system, which we're going to talk a little bit about in a few weeks. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Q system, or the foldback system. Okay, there's a QA and a QB, which we can route those. Those are basically headphones that we can route to where we need them to go. And that also routes whether we're using the short fader or the long fader, and whether it's pre-fader or post-fader, which you understand pre-fader is before we adjust the main fader or after we adjust the main fader. So these can be used as auxiliaries if we need to. So we got a total of 8 if we actually need to. Okay, next we have the EQ. We have a high and low filter, which we can boost or cut. And these can be split between the 2 faders. You see SF means short faders or long faders. So we can split between the 2. Next up, we have a parametric, which has access to a Q, and we choose the frequency and whether we boost or cut on the low mid and the high mid. Very similar to the Studio B console, the Allen Heath. Next, we have a pan for the channel fader, and whether it's getting its source from the long fader or the short fader. Now, the long fader source for the short fader is very similar to the XFX button on the Allen Heath console, meaning that I can turn this fader, the short fader, into another auxiliary if I need to. Like if I want to feed the headphones using the short faders to be able to mix the headphones differently, I can do that. We've actually never had to do that in this room, but it's good to know that that feature is there. And of course, each one's got a mute and a solo, or this is a British console, so they call it a cut instead of a mute. And it's a, you can put it into the mix or not into the mix. And then you can also route whether you're sending it to a subgroup. On a mix, these buttons also become a subgroup. So you can send it to one of the 8 subgroups over here. So next up, we're on to the long fader. Now the long fader, we can tell it to go to the mix, or we can flip it up to here and also tell it to go to a subgroup. Okay, there is a flip button. We may want to have the long fader be the DAW and the short fader be the mic, or we might want to have the short fader be the mic and the long fader be the DAW. But we can flip those if we really need to. Okay, and then of course each one's got a pan knob and a mix button, so we can put it into the main mix. It's got a solo and a cut, and then the long fader. So this is how this console works. And then now we're over to the stereo returns. This console also has 4 stereo returns. Now these stereo returns do not have access to an equalizer. Unlike the Allen Heath, 2 of them have access to an EQ. But it does have a gain, and we can also send whatever's coming back into the stereo. We can also send whatever's coming back into a stereo into the foldback system, okay, or the Q system. Okay, and then we have access to put it in the, then we could also tell it to go to the mix or not go to the mix, and then of course a level control. Now these are the bus master trims, meaning that if we need a little bit more gain on the bus going to the recording device, we can increase it or whatever. We can increase it or not. Okay, next we have the auxiliary masters. You see 2 of them are Q, and then there's 6 auxiliary masters. So the Qs actually are set up for the headphones, and those get routed from the foldback system. Now, like I said earlier, there's going to be a whole system about where we talk about the foldback system, which is the headphones, basically. We can also send this signal to the studio loudspeakers, which are the speakers in the studio. We can tell it where it's getting its signal, so we can actually do a playback in the studio without everybody coming into the room, without everybody coming into the control room to listen to a playback. We can actually do a playback in the studio. This is the speaker control system. Okay, this system has 4 monitors, unlike the Allen Heath only has 2, and we can choose which speakers we're listening to. We can also choose which source we're listening to, whether it's the DAW, an external 1, external 2, or the mix. which is what's running through the console. And then, like every other console on the planet, it's got a cut left, cut right, and a mono switch. We can dim the system if we need to dim it, if it's too loud. We can also cut all the speaker feeds. Next, we have an oscillator, which is used to calibrate tape. And this system also you can control on the solos. You can control whether it's up front or whether it's by itself. This console also has access to a built-in bus compressor. This is the master fader, or the master bus, the 2 bus we call it. This is the talkback system, whether we're slating, which means that when you use the slate button, it puts whatever's going through the talkback mic into all the record channels. Or we can talk to the studio loudspeakers in case the artists don't have their headphones on, or we can talk to the headphones. Either way. And then this one has a level control for how much is going into that microphone, which is the talkback mic. Then this console has a built-in bus compressor, and this is very much an SSL style bus compressor. If you notice these numbers, they are the same as an SSL bus compressor. This console was designed by 2 guys at Audient. One guy used to work at SSL, one guy used to work at Neve. So the preamps sound very Neve-like, and then everything else kind of routes. It routes like an SSL. It feels like an SSL. This bus compressor does not say SSL on it, but it's very much an SSL bus compressor. Hopefully you guys got something out of this, and I've explained a little bit about how the routing of this console works. We're gonna get deeper into the signal flow month by looking at patch bays. We're gonna be looking at signal coming back from our DAW, and we're gonna talk about next month, we're gonna talk about mixing, we're gonna talk about hybrid mixing, we're gonna talk about mixing on the console, mixing in the box. It's gonna be a good time for everybody. So if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, remember to leave a comment or shoot me an email. Ask the questions.
So I hope you got something out of watching me tell you all about our consoles. Of course, we're going to talk a little bit more about it next week. Next week, we're going to talk about input, output, and how the patch bays interact with our consoles in both the rooms. I'm going to show you both the rooms. I do want to give you something free. It's our Basics of Signal Flow course. Now, this is a quick mini course, if you want to call it that. Probably take you an afternoon to get through it if you're interested in it. There's some videos, a couple of things you can read, a couple of things you can download. Go grab it. It's learnprorecording.com/basics. Like I said, it's absolutely free. Doesn't cost you a thing. It's going to help get your mindset thinking about signal flow and how signal gets from point A to point B to point C and so on and so on. Now, like I said, next week we're going to talk about input, output, and patch bays, how things actually come from the studio into the console, into the DAW, and then out of the DAW back on the console so we can hear it, and how we can route things via our patch bays. Now, the patch bays in each room are very similar, but quite different. In Studio B, we have 1/4-inch patch bays. In Studio A, we have the TT, or Tiny Telephone Bantam patch bays. So I'll explain how all that works next week. The week after that, it's going to be exciting. I'm excited about it because we're going to talk about analog consoles in a digital world. How do we interact with our DAW, basically our computer, onto our analog console? I'm going to show you this stuff, okay? And it's pretty cool, and it's going to make you guys run out and buy an analog console. It's going to make you want to go out and buy an analog console, I promise you. And then we're going to talk about, I want to dedicate an entire podcast to our fold-back system. This is something that gets overlooked, something that we don't even think about, something you're like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. Yes, I'm going to share with you how we do it, and it's a little bit different in each room, but I'm going to share with you how we do it, how we get it done, and it just makes the client, it makes the artist very comfortable. You want your artist comfortable in their headphones so they don't have to think about it. They just can do what they do, and you do what you do, and you're going to get the best out of your artist. You're going to capture the best recording that you can. That's our job as engineers and producers, isn't it? To capture it the best way we can, and to make the artist feel really comfortable doing it. So again, let me share with you the Basics of Signal Flow course. Go get it. learnprorecording.com/basics. And This week's blog post is going to be cool. It's kind of revolving around what we're talking about in this month. This month is Signal Flow Month, June. Welcome to June, by the way, in case you guys forget. Grads and dads, grab your grads and dads and come hang out and learn about signal flow. So there's that, man. So next month is exciting. I'm really excited for next month. I've been working on it already. We're going to be talking about mixing and mastering all month long. I'm going to share with you mixing in the box, mixing out of the box, mixing strictly on the console, doing a hybrid mix, man, which is kind of the way we do most mixes here at this studio. Most of the mixes are hybrid mixes because that's the way we roll. And anyway, have a great week. Don't forget about the blog post. Thursday morning live, we're going to rebrand it to Thursday live because sometimes it's in the morning, sometimes it's in the afternoon. So we're just going to call it Thursday live. Pay attention. Get on the list. You get on the list by downloading the free course, by getting the free course. That'll put you on my list. I'll shoot you an email letting you know what time and where to go to get the Thursday live. Now, Thursday live is all about I'm there live with you every Thursday, answering your questions, showing you some cool stuff, sharing with you whatever it is that you want to know about because I'm here for you. So without anything else to talk about, let's get out of here. Go have a great week. Have a prosperous week. We'll see you guys Wednesday on the blog post, next Monday on the podcast. Donnie B, I am out of here. Peace.